You need to stop trying to be so disciplined, not because I think you're going to burn out, but because discipline, motivational cultivation, and habit tracking are fundamentally flawed because you have a lizard brain. Let me ask you, do you control what thoughts you think? Can you control what thought you're going to think in 5 minutes from now? Do you control what emotions you feel? The less control you have of these things that come from your mind, the less you're going to be able to translate these thoughts into actions. And I understand you have big goals, big aspirations, and you're trying to find a logical way to transform these thoughts you're having, these habits, these patterns, and refining them so you can take proper action in a good direction. And so we look online and we see that people dislike motivation because motivation's biggest flaw is it takes emotional cultivation. And most people don't have the emotional intelligence to cultivate their own emotions to guide them in a proper direction. While this is something I can teach you to do, it might take over 5 years to develop that skill. While discipline, on the other hand, has this grand ability that you don't need emotions. And so we look at discipline as the king of all productivity advice due to you don't need the emotional cultivation to take action. But even this has a fundamental flaw, the same flaw that even habit tracking has. And that is that your thoughts and your goal setting is determined by you. If you were in an anime and your goal was to defeat the supervillain, how would the supervillain combat this fight? What would give the supervillain the upper hand? In most animes, this works because the supervillain shuts down your physical body through brute force. But a more intelligent way that you could do this is by shutting down the hero's will to continue to move forward. There's a part of your brain that I like to call the lizard brain. This is your amygdala, parts of your frontal lobe, some of our dopaminergic system, even our parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system, our embrocoidal nervous system. There's parts of us that have a very reactionary basis and a negativity bias that stop us from taking proper action towards the thing we want in our life. This lizard part of our brain is kind of like the supervillain. A supervillain's main job is to shut down everything that can cause somebody to be motivated or move towards their goal. If you can understand how the enemy is going to attack you, you can dodge it. If you understand the predictive mechanisms of how a stock market is going to fall or how we go into recession, you can at least prepare for these situations once you understand the data and representations of this negative cycle. I'm trying to tell you this stuff so you can be aware of your own faults, what triggers you to do the negative things. Overindulge, not work on the project, not talk to the person, not do the actions. You must understand your own weakness. It could be logic, persuasive arguments going on in your mind. You could feel really tired. You could get brain fog. You could feel really horny when you try to work randomly, even though there was nothing triggering that. It's just that your mind knows that that emotion or that thought process is going to lead you away from doing the work that you need to do. And once you see that you are vulnerable to these hits and to these attacks, it is up to you to learn that you can just dodge them by being aware that those are coming at you. That when you sit down at work, that tiredness is not derived from your sleep schedule. It's not derived from some genetic factor. It's not derived from any external thing. It's coming from the internal you. Your brain can determine when you feel tired, if it doesn't want to do the work, if it feels like it's too much effort, or whatever the reasoning behind the lizard brain is. If it says, I don't want to do the work, it can cause emotions inside of you. Your brain is a part of you. Who's to say that it's not manipulating you, causing emotions, causing thoughts all the time that you don't subjectively consent to having? When you're having brain fog, you don't need more nootropics. You need to understand that that's your weakness and that's what your lizard brain does in order to keep you away from work. It's the trick that you've fallen for 1,000 times before. Feeling anxiety, feeling like you need to go hook up with somebody or go overindulge in food. These are actions that lead you away from the action that you need to be doing, which could be working. It could be working on yourself, some sort of self-progress. You'll notice that your lizard brain draws you away from that. And once you are observant of this, you could say, this is just an attack that's coming from within. This is not a physical thing happening to me. I'm not tired right now because I didn't get enough sleep. I'm not tired right now because of some genetic factor. I noticed that my tiredness is derived only when I sit down to work. Working is a trigger for an emotion. Isn't that weird that you can connect that a physical thing triggers a specific emotion, even though that thing has nothing to do with that emotion associated? If you are working on a digital landscape, let's say I have my laptop here and I'm working on a website, what would it take for me to develop this website? It would take creative efforts, logical thoughts, a lot of focus. Our lizard brain has the ability to take control of the other parts of your brain, stopping this from happening. You'll get brain fog, you'll be lethargic just sitting down trying to work, you won't be able to focus and do the things that you want to do. Does that sound familiar? And that's just at a logical basis. And our lizard brain can not only nullify our internal emotions, our dopaminergic system, it also controls like our parasympathetic and nervous system functionality. The fight, flight, or freeze part of your mind, it determines how creative you are or if you have narrow thinking. We're going to destroy your lizard brain starting right now. As I tell you the solution, listen to your thoughts and emotions. You're going to feel really bored. You're going to want to click off. It's going to be hard to focus on what I'm saying. That is your lizard brain interjecting emotions to avoid this conversation. Alternatively, your brain might interject ideas with very logical expertise to counteract what I'm saying. It'll use justification, memories, patternistic thinking, perception manipulation in order to make it so you don't believe what I'm telling you. I am your lizard brain's biggest threat. And so in order for it to survive, it must destroy my credibility. So be aware of that. Number one thing you need to do is observe whether your thoughts are leading you closer or further from your goals. Every time you want to do something, what do you feel and what do you think about? If you're trying to talk to the person, you might have anxiety, self-deprecating thoughts, lower ego, and you'll feel like it's not worth doing that activity. If you're working on a project, an essay, a thesis, a business, you might feel like your thoughts are really cluttered, it's hard to focus, brain fog, you'll be extremely tired. Whatever that main emotion is, that is your biggest weakness, and your lizard brain has used that against you. And once we understand your weakness, this is going to be the first step to destroying and avoiding the lizard brain's main attack. So the second thing you need to do is observe when our brain is neutralizing positive things and amplifying negative things. As you think about doing something, your brain will try to convince you that it's not worth doing or it's not up to a quality standard. And really listen to that. Quality standard. Everything has to be perfect. Everything has to come out with a good result. If I talk to that girl, she has to like me. She has to have some sort of positive outcome that benefits my ego. If I want to work on the project, I have to get book sales. I have to get views. I have to have some result. And unless the effort I'm putting in can guarantee that result, then what's the point of doing it in the first place? It'll also use a lot of logic to make you avoid doing the task at hand. I'm going to give some examples, and this might sound stupid from a third-party perspective, but also think about the fact that this is how some people's minds actually work. Some people want to work on a business to make more money, and more money generally will help with somebody's overall happiness. So more money generally is good. But people and their lizard brain will lie to them about this fact. If somebody's core desire is getting a relationship, their lizard brain is going to convince them that more money means that you'll only ever find these gold diggers and everybody likes you for your money and nothing else, and there's no real friends, there's no real relationships, love doesn't exist, and it's the money's fault. Money is the root of all evil. There's politicians going after money. Money is bad. It's not good for you. You need to detach from the outcome. This is what Buddha taught us. Okay, Buddha said, the attachment is the cause of suffering, right? So I don't need money. Who cares about money? I don't want to suffer. I'm going to make this very clear. I just gave some examples, but think about how far your mind can go. It'll use logic To say that doing the thing is going to cause more suffering than good. It's going to say spiritual point of views. It's going to say logical point of views, emotional things. It's going to make you feel tired. You're not going to want to work on a project when you're tired. It's going to be really hard to work on the project when you can't focus. Really start to observe what negative thoughts, emotions, and things come up in your mind when we start to do an activity. You're going to have the best results to fight the lizard brain when you use your willpower. Now, willpower comes from a part of your brain called the ACC, anterior cingulate cortex. This is the same part of the brain that does some of the motivational circuitry and prediction efforts when it comes to deciding what task we're going to do. So you have this internal confliction. Do I do the negative task or the positive task? Do I eat the junk food or the healthy food? Now, how does our brain actually determine which pathway we take? Now, if we understand this, we will be able to master every action that we do. Willpower is not a depleting resource. Willpower is derived from your awareness. So anytime you are aware of something, you are exerting willpower. It is an ultimate form of focus. Now, willpower has the ability to skew the battle, this internal confliction, in the way that you want. Because our lizard brain has to use triggers in order to get what it wants. So if you are somebody who overindulges in food, you must understand why you are triggered to do this thing. Maybe it's dopamine reasons. You watch too much content online, you're constantly craving to eat more food, you eat one piece of sugary food, this leads you to the next and to the next, always looking for that high of good taste. Alternatively, some other people have a more traumatic response, like stress or overwhelmment, leads them to compulsively eating food. Those responses are your lizard brain. Now, our job is to make sure we don't take that pathway, we take a more logical, routed pathway. You will notice that within the brain, you can only ever have one selected mode of your brain being activated at a time. You cannot both be horny and logical at the same time. You cannot be creative and logical at the same time. They conflict. If you're trying to draw the most perfect art piece, if you are constantly being criticized by this internal voice, you will struggle to be in that creative workflow. You have to let go of restrictions in order to be a good artist. And the same goes with basically anything. Different parts of like your pleasure versus logic versus creativity versus this thing and this thing. You see this in like the default mode network versus executive control network. The parts of your brain like that can only be activated one at a time, but not necessarily both simultaneously, except for very rare instances. And so what we need to do is make sure we are picking the proper pathway using willpower. Willpower is almost like a form of logical thought, but we're not really using logic to our side here. We're using awareness. The ACC does use a lot of logical and sub-logical thought processing in order to determine what actions you take. So to make this simple, every time that you are in a situation where you have to choose between two different options, all you have to do is just observe those two different options. And this helps why I explained everything before this moment, is so that way you understand what is your lizard brain and what is your more logical aware brain. Because if you can understand how the enemy is going to attack you, you can dodge it. And so once you understand this, it should be easier for you. Just be aware of this. Learn to counter these attacks. Weaken the strength of your lizard brain and strengthen the moments that you can be aware and logical. Tell yourself to do something without having a reason to do it. Go on a walk, not to burn calories, not to see the sunlight, not for any given reason at all. Just do it to fight the urge. Just do it to fight your logical thought, because your logical thought will say there's no point to go on a walk. But if your weakness is logical thought, then why are you listening to it? Every time that somebody spikes your emotion and you overreact and you yell at somebody or something happens to you, now your emotions might be your weakness. Do things to counteract your emotions. Work when you're tired. Go to the gym only when you're extremely tired. Talk to the person only when you look really bad. Fight the fight that is going on. Your lizard brain knows your weakness. Now it's your turn. It's your opportunity to fight against it. Try to actively encourage this weakness to be triggered, and then don't fall into the compulsions that lead you away from your goal. do things without having a reason to do them. And if you enjoyed our conversation, all I ask is that you share this with somebody who you think could use it.